the Egyptian artifacts taken from the Grand Canyon, the giant mummies, giant bones, all of the Egyptian, if you will, antiquities that were present and excavated. Why is 90% of the Grand Canyon off limits?
In 1908, President Teddy Roosevelt aimed to protect the Grand Canyon from timber and mining activities. However, it took another 11 years for Congress to officially designate the Grand Canyon as a national park. Sensing a final chance for adventure, explorer G.E. Kincaid decided to navigate the Colorado River through the canyon. With its wealth of minerals like gold, silver, and copper, Kincaid wanted to search for treasures before the area was permanently closed to exploration. Approximately 40 miles upriver from the El Tovar Crystal Canyon, Kincaid noticed unusual stains in the sediment formation about 2,000 feet above him. He secured his boat and set out to investigate. Lacking a clear trail, he hiked a short distance until he stumbled upon an intriguing sight hidden beneath desert brush. Hundreds of carved steps in sandstone, leading up to a high ledge along the canyon wall. Following the steps, he discovered the entrance to a cavern that was unmistakably man-made. Upon entering the cavern and switching on his flashlight, Kincaid saw writing on the walls that was neither English nor Native American. It was ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. He raised his flashlight and noticed that the tunnel extended far into the darkness. Unbeknownst to him, this was just the beginning of his discoveries. As G.E. Kincaid tied off his small wooden boat to explore the peculiar rock coloration, he hoped to uncover clues to a mineral deposit, but did not expect to encounter hieroglyphics. Spotting chisel marks on the walls, he drew his pistol, activated another light, and cautiously ventured deeper into the dimly lit cavern, taking meticulous notes of everything he observed. The main passageway was roughly 12 feet wide, narrowing to 9 feet at the far end. About 57 feet from the entrance, side passages branched off to the right and left, leading to several rooms comparable in size to modern living rooms, with some measuring 30 by 40 feet. These rooms featured oval-shaped doors and ventilation systems with round air spaces connecting to the passages. The walls were about 3.5 feet thick, and the passages were expertly chiseled as if laid out by an engineer. Many room ceilings converged toward the center. The side passages near the entrance angled sharply from the main hall, but toward the back they gradually turned to a right angle. Kincaid soon realized he was in an extensive complex that could have housed up to 50,000 people. Inside some rooms, he discovered granaries filled with glazed pottery, many still containing seeds. He also found cooking areas and a large dining hall, along with numerous ancient artifacts. Carefully, Kincaid wrapped a few small metal and ceramic objects for further examination. Kincaid described another large room as a metalworking area, a technology that seemed out of place in this region. Various tools made of copper were found here, indicating that these people had mastered the lost art of hardening this metal, a process that chemists have long sought without success. On a bench surrounding the workshop were charcoal and other materials used in this technique. There was also slag and material similar to matte, suggesting that these ancient inhabitants smelted ores. However, no evidence has yet been found regarding where or how this smelting occurred, nor the source of the ore. After exploring the underground complex for several hours, G.E. Kincaid remained uncertain about the purpose of the site or its builders. He then discovered another expansive room, a crypt. This crypt contained shelves filled with rows of mummies, dozens of them. At this point, Kincaid realized he needed assistance to thoroughly explore this underground city. Kincaid sent several artifacts and his findings to the Smithsonian, requesting financial and logistical support for what he believed to be the most significant archaeological discovery ever made. The Smithsonian agreed, and within weeks, Professor S.A. Jordan arrived with a team of about 40 scientists, researchers, and laborers to excavate and investigate the ancient underground city. With increased lighting and manpower, the scientists noted that the cave system's layout was not random. It exhibited a symmetrical and intentional design. All tunnels led to a central chamber, which housed a large statue that Kincaid thought resembled Buddha. Located over 100 feet from the entrance was the cross hall, several hundred feet long, featuring an idol or image of the people's god seated cross-legged, holding a lotus flower or lily in each hand. The statue had an oriental cast, and its resemblance to Buddha left the scientists uncertain about the specific religious worship it represented. Based on the findings, it is possible that this worship was most akin to that of the ancient peoples of Tibet. Due to this discovery, Kincaid's team began referring to the complex as the Citadel. The crypt was one of the larger rooms found. With sufficient lighting, Kincaid could fully describe his observations. The walls sloped back at an angle of about 35 degrees, with tiers of mummies occupying individual shelves. Each mummy had a small bench at its head, on which lay copper cups and fragments of broken swords. Some mummies were covered with clay, while all were wrapped in a bark fabric. The urns or cups on the lower shelves were rudimentary, while those on higher shelves displayed finer designs, indicating a more advanced stage of civilization. Notably, all the examined mummies were male. No children or females were buried here. This observation suggests that this outer section may have served as the warriors' barracks. Kincaid, Jordan, and the Smithsonian team thoroughly examined the cave complex, uncovering evidence that it was not just a distant temple inhabited by a few priests. Instead, it was a vast city that housed thousands of men, women, and children for hundreds, if not thousands, of years. The big question remained: who were these people? By the end of their expedition, G.E. Kincaid and Professor Jordan's team had uncovered hundreds of rooms, including barracks, granaries, metalworking shops, temples, and numerous living spaces. Although many rooms were empty, thousands of artifacts were discovered, including swords and shields made of copper, bronze, and an unidentified gray metal that resembled platinum. They found pottery, urns, cooking utensils, small yellow stones known as cat's eyes, and large stone tablets inscribed with hieroglyphics. The urns and walls above doorways, as well as the stone tablets, featured mysterious hieroglyphics that the Smithsonian Institute hopes to decode. The engravings on the tablets likely pertain to the religious beliefs of the people. Similar hieroglyphics have also been identified in southern Arizona among pictorial writings. Only 2 types of animals were depicted, one of which was prehistoric. Despite all the relics and writings Kincaid and Jordan uncovered, they remained no closer to determining the identity of the civilization that built the citadel in the Grand Canyon. Some statues appeared to have a Tibetan influence, but they were not an exact match. The writing seemed Egyptian, but again, it did not quite fit. Experts on site were unable to identify the statues or translate the text. However, there were 2 points of agreement among the researchers. First, the civilization responsible for the citadel was significantly more advanced than the Native American tribes that inhabited the area for the past few thousand years. This long-lost civilization was working with bronze long before the official Bronze Age began. They understood labor specialization and agriculture at a time when other societies were still primarily hunting and gathering. These findings challenged everything taught in mainstream archaeology and anthropology, as such a civilization should not exist. The second point of consensus: the researchers agreed that the civilization that constructed the citadel did not originate locally, but instead arrived from the other side of the world. Kincaid and Professor Jordan sent numerous boxes of artifacts, along with books filled with notes and drawings, back to the Smithsonian. They proposed that an ancient civilization existed in the Grand Canyon thousands of years before Native Americans arrived in North America. This civilization was technologically advanced, educated, skilled, and spiritually complex, with origins that could be traced back to Egypt or Asia. Kincaid requested additional resources and a larger team to further investigate the citadel and search the Grand Canyon for more evidence of this lost civilization. However, his request was denied, and both G.E. Kincaid and Professor S.A. Jordan vanished without a trace. Located in northern Arizona, the Grand Canyon is one of the most breathtaking natural wonders on the planet, shaped by the Colorado River over millions of years. The Grand Canyon is more than just a scenic destination for tourists. It holds deep spiritual significance for the tribes that have inhabited the area for thousands of years, including the Hopi, Navajo, Zuni, and Apache, among others. Hopi mythology claims that the first people of the world emerged from the Grand Canyon. According to their story, many millennia ago, a reptilian race appeared. Yes, the concept of lizard people frequently emerges in these narratives, and it may take more convincing for you to believe in them. However, the legend persists. According to this myth, a race of reptilian beings, lizard people, came out of the Grand Canyon and transformed into humans. These lizard people are said to be shapeshifters. Other Pueblo cultures, such as the Zuni and Acoma, have similar tales suggesting that a group of beings existed before the tribes arrived. Some legends speak of reptilians, while others mention a race of giants. Rumors circulate about the discovery of giant skeletons across the western United States, but evidence of these findings has allegedly been suppressed. We already know that people reached North America before Columbus, with the Vikings exploring and settling parts of Newfoundland 500 years prior to the so-called discovery of the New World. There's increasing evidence that ancient Chinese explorers arrived in both North and South America before the Vikings. However, reaching the Grand Canyon is a different story altogether. How could people make it there? And if they did, how did they possess the technology to excavate millions of tons of rock to create an entire underground city? Perhaps we've known the answer to that question for over 1,000 years. Traveling from Europe and Asia to America thousands of years ago was nearly impossible. However, some brave individuals managed to make the journey. Reaching and establishing a presence in the Grand Canyon is a far more challenging endeavor than simply landing on a beach in California. Technology is essential for such an undertaking. The Hopi people have a fascinating legend about the ant people, described as humanoid beings smaller than humans, with pale skin and large insect-like eyes. According to their lore, a series of cataclysms struck the earth thousands of years ago, threatening the young Hopi. A sky god appeared from what they called a moving star, interpreted as a UFO, and led the Hopi to the ant people, who guided them to underground caves for safety. Afterward, the sky god returned to his moving star and ascended above the clouds. The Pueblo also have a legend concerning the Havmusus. These beings are typically portrayed as humanoid with golden skin and large eyes, considered aliens. They resided in a vast underground city and engaged in trade with distant people. The Pueblo described their weapons as silver tubes that emitted lightning, capable of instantly killing a person. A particularly intriguing aspect of the Havmusus legend is that they supposedly flew silver canoes in the sky, UFOs. These crafts were said to hum and maneuver like eagles, moving at impressive speeds. Most ancient cultures have a flood myth recounting a global catastrophe that melted ice caps and caused sea levels to rise by 400 feet, potentially destroying entire cities or even continents like Atlantis. Many of these myths also mention that after the waters receded, godlike beings descended from the sky. These gods supposedly bestowed the gift of civilization upon humans, teaching them lost knowledge such as writing, astronomy, and agriculture. Could the city in the Grand Canyon be evidence of this historical period? If so, why would anyone want to hide it? The information in this episode is drawn from 2 front-page articles in the Phoenix Gazette published in 1909. Over the years, mainstream researchers have dismissed these articles as a hoax, an elaborate story aimed at boosting newspaper sales, much like modern clickbait. While this assessment may be true, many believe the tale is genuine and that the Smithsonian is covering it up. That's the official narrative. According to it, Kincaid's cave is a hoax, so there's no reason to seek it out. There's nothing to see. Even Kincaid himself wanted to keep people away. First, it's important to note that the cavern is almost inaccessible. The entrance is located 1,486 feet down the sheer canyon wall, on government land, where visitors are prohibited under trespass laws. Scientists prefer to work without interference from curiosity seekers or relic hunters who might disturb archaeological discoveries. A trip to the site would likely be fruitless, and any visitor would be turned away, whether at the request of the Smithsonian or to protect the find. Kincaid clearly aimed to discourage people from searching for the citadel, but even over a century later, that hasn't stopped some from trying, with claims that they have found it. Jerry Wills and his wife Kathy have been researching the Kincaid Cave mystery for years. They aim to locate the original base camp of the explorers to find the cave. After extensive research and exploration in the area where G.E. Kincaid claimed to have discovered the cave, Jerry and Kathy identified a spot filled with artifacts from that period. They believe the entrance to the underground city is located on the canyon wall just below this site. However, exploring the area is challenging, as it is off-limits due to federal regulations. While about 1,000 caves have been discovered in the Grand Canyon, only around 30 have been mapped, and many have been sealed. Many are willing to take the risk, signing waivers to absolve the government of responsibility in case of accidents. Despite this, the government maintains a firm stance, citing safety concerns. It raises questions about why activities like skydiving, roller coaster rides, and driving are deemed legal. Some caves in the Grand Canyon have been blocked off with steel gates, purportedly to protect the bat population, which has caused its share of issues in recent years. Despite the risks, many continue to seek the lost city in the Grand Canyon, accepting the possibility of fines or imprisonment. When Jerry and Kathy's team attempted to explore the area, they noticed an unmarked plane overhead, suggesting they were being monitored, even though this section of the Grand Canyon is designated as a no-fly zone. Jerry believes this was a warning, and his team had to abandon their expedition. While exploring the cave from above is nearly impossible, another group of explorers attempted to access it from below, following Kincaid's path. As they neared the location, they encountered a black helicopter, specifically an Apache combat helicopter, not a typical tourist or civilian aircraft. While searching for the ventilation shafts Kincaid mentioned, they stumbled upon cement blocks in an isolated area. These blocks appear to be platforms equipped with hardware and anchors for mountaineering. Authorities claim these are structural reinforcements to prevent rock falls. In this restricted zone, some rock formations bear unusual names, such as Isis Temple, Tower of Set, Horus, and the Cheops Pyramid. These names reference ancient Egyptian and Hindu cultures, which have myths about gods aiding civilization after a great flood. Officially, the government states that the naming of these features is a coincidence, but skepticism remains. David Hatcher Childress, a French author with 200 published books, often explores ancient mysteries. He believes the U.S. government suppresses archaeological discoveries, drawing parallels to the film Raiders of the Lost Ark. He asserts that institutions like the Smithsonian and other federal agencies conceal significant findings from the Americas. Childress traces this cover-up back to 1881, when geologist John Wesley Powell appointed Cyrus Thomas as the director of the Eastern Mound Division of the Smithsonian's Bureau of Ethnology. Thomas believed there was a distinct race of mound builders preceding American Indians, a view known as diffusionism, which posits a widespread cultural exchange across distances. Contrastingly, the Smithsonian promoted isolationism, asserting that most civilizations were isolated, particularly those separated by oceans. This view claimed the advanced civilizations of the Ohio and Mississippi valleys were exceptional, with little contact with others, like the Aztecs or Maya. Such assertions ignore the Mississippi River's extensive reach from Canada to the Gulf of Mexico, making the idea of isolation seem implausible. Examinations of ancient mounds in the Midwest reveal evidence of complex cultures with cities larger than those in contemporary Europe, including burials of extraordinarily tall individuals, some reaching 7 or 8 feet. Excavations at the Spiro Mounds in the 1930s uncovered these large skeletons when the average male height was about 5'6". However, these skeletons have since disappeared. In 1892, Frank Burns discovered stone coffins in Alabama that measured about 7.5 feet long. After being sent to the Smithsonian, researcher Frederick J. Pohl later inquired about their whereabouts. The Smithsonian claimed they couldn't locate the specimens, despite records indicating they were received. Years later, they stated the coffins had been found, but were stored in a contaminated warehouse, restricting access. During World War II, while building an airship in Alaska, a crew unearthed a mound containing gigantic human remains, skeletons significantly larger than normal. Reports of such discoveries span from Alaska to Mexico City, with the Smithsonian often stepping in and subsequently silencing these stories. The phrase, "skeletons in your closet," refers to secrets one wishes to keep hidden, secrets that could be embarrassing or dangerous if revealed. In the case of the Smithsonian, these skeletons could be literal, as evidence exists that a highly advanced race inhabited North America long before the arrival of native tribes, evidence that the government likely prefers to keep secret. Mainstream science dismisses these claims as absurd, yet the Hopi and other tribes in the Grand Canyon hold a different view. The Hopi believe that when the first people emerged from the Grand Canyon, they sent a message to the Temple of the Sun for a blessing of peace. This messenger has yet to return, but even today, tribal elders can be seen at sundown on rooftops, gazing toward the setting sun and awaiting the messenger's return. When he does return, they believe the ancient land will be restored to its original inhabitants. However, given the U.S. government's history of taking land from indigenous peoples, one must wonder if they would ever truly relinquish it.